Hi, are you menopausal and do you worry about retaining your credibility when those tricky menopausal symptoms hit? Do you feel vulnerable in that moment and fear that all that hard work is going to go to waste and that all that people are going to talk about is those awful symptoms that you are experiencing? Well, if that is you, you are in the right place because that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm joined today by Emma Wainer. She is an executive voice coach and she works mainly with women who are just on the cusp of C-suite or in the C-suite, or entrepreneurs who are just about to scale their business. Hello, Emma. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Kate. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's jump right in. But before we do, the first video was all about brain fog and how to deal with that in the moment when, when you're starting to speak and, oh my goodness, not only the word, the sentence, or the whole topic jumps out of your mind, what to do in that moment. So if that's one of your symptoms, please go back and watch the first video. But today it is all about vulnerability and credibility. And vulnerability for many menopausal women is a big issue. So if you have sort of mood swings, so swinging from tears to shouting, or you have panic attacks, or you have hot flushes, or any of those sorts of symptoms, it can feel incredibly vulnerable in that moment. And let's face it, you've worked seriously hard to get to this point, and you do not want to lose your credibility because of your menopause. And because of that, it is about being able to manage that very careful balance between being overly vulnerable and retaining your credibility. So I'm sure, Emma, you've got some amazing tips for us.
Yeah, the authentic way, that's really, really important. And I think particularly when I work with female leaders, is when we do the group programs, and I love this moment, and it usually happens about halfway through session 2. They all look around and they see these other amazing women in the room and they go, well, she's amazing, and she's amazing, and she's amazing, but they're all different. And they suddenly, you can see the penny drop and they go, I can be me. I can do this whole leadership thing. I can be in charge of this company and be me. I don't have to try and be like somebody else. I don't, being me is actually the best thing that I can do. And so, when you're talking about your clients and this journey that they've been on, they've done all that hard work to get to where they are. They've established their credibility usually over a long period of time. And the really, really good news is that you can maintain that credibility and be you. You don't have to turn yourself into someone else. Now, the issue is that you're now having to manage these other symptoms, these other things that are coming in and, attacking your way of working. You're having to change that slightly. So I think one of the really important things is that and I talk about cheerlead ourselves, that we cheerlead ourselves. So we're standing by ourselves. So literally a little mini me standing beside me going, go Emma, go Emma. And it's really important actually that it is in that second person, that we're not saying, I've got this. Because when we say, Emma, you've got this, you're doing an amazing job, you prepped all of this. And even if you forget your words when you start speaking, it doesn't matter because the team know how good you are. It's really important it's in that second person because it detaches from how we feel about the situation, and the research shows it's much more effective at us helping us then go and do a really great job. So we need somebody standing by ourselves and for ourselves saying, it's okay, you've got this, you're amazing, you've done all the work, let's go do it. And it's really important to know that credibility, once it's been established, is quite difficult to erode. So you'd have to make an absolute pig's ear of a lot of stuff that saw someone went, holy moly, Kate's lost it. Kate can't do it anymore. So that's the really good news, is that you are once you've established your credibility and your competence, it takes quite a bit of messing up to erode that. As long as you still being authentically you. And that's a really important bit, is that you're showing up as who you are, that you're not suddenly trying to be something that you're not. That's the really, really key bit. I don't know if you find that with people that you talk to, Kate.
Yeah, I think that's really, it is the critical point. It's about retaining your authentic self. And what we're saying here is that the world has not gone to hell in a handbag permanently. An incident has occurred. So maybe you've had a hot flush, maybe you've had lots of hot flushes, maybe you've had, you burst into tears, maybe you shouted at someone, maybe you got a panic attack, maybe you had loss of verbal recall, all of those things, or maybe, God forbid, you had to run out of the room because of UTIs, which are extremely common at this time, or flooding. So you'd had to make a quick exit to the bathroom, which you can't plan for, and it just happens, and you just need to manage it. Now, these are isolated incidents. They're not all the time, every day. They might feel like it, but they're not. You're still being credible, you're still doing your job, you're still turning up, you're still putting the effort in, and you've got this history behind you. And for many women at this point, it's decades. It's not just 5 minutes, it's decades of credibility that's buoying you along, that's carrying you to this point. And that is not destroyed in a moment. That's not destroyed in, excuse me, I'm just going to have to leave the room quickly. That's not taken away in that moment. So it is about giving it some perspective. It's about understanding that people are not judging you in that extremely negative way that would remove all of your credibility because of some isolated incidents. Note, I say incidents, because this is going on for years, night and day. It can be attritional, and it does happen many times. So it is about, in that moment, understanding that you may need to take action. You may need to take control and understand that when this occurs, what do I do next? And it's not burst into tears, running out the room with your arms in the air, going, oh my God, I can't control it. It is obviously going to be something a lot more proactive than that. So it is about saying, depending on what your symptom is, and it depends on which ones are the most powerful and the most detrimental to you. And you have to do that bit of homework to understand which ones are impacting you and which ones are detrimental to you within the workplace. So you've got to find out which ones they are, and when they occur, what do I do next? Because that planning gives you the control that you need to be able to A, feel in control, B, take control, C, retain your credibility, and D, it is about also making sure that if you are going to be vulnerable, that you feel comfortable in that space. So it's vulnerable on your terms. And I think that that's really important. But all of that gives you a level of authenticity that allows you to step into that space and say, this is what's going on.
Absolutely. I think, if you think about it in terms of, if I relate it to what speakers are like on stage, there are certain speakers who can go onto a stage and talk about genuinely horrific or upsetting situations. And they can do it in such a way that it helps their audience feel about that situation. They are emotionally involved. Yet the speaker is emotionally involved in what they're saying. They have got a relationship to the content, obviously, but they're not filled with emotion. They have a degree of control. So they can talk about this difficult situation comfortably. So I think what you're saying, Kate, is that by having that degree of control, so for me, it would be number one, notice that it's going to happen in your body. Notice if you're starting to feel, oh, that's going to be a hot flush. Notice if the brain fog is starting to descend, because the quicker you notice those things happening in your body, and that's going to take a little bit of mental effort at the beginning to notice the moment that it starts, because obviously we can feel it once it's got going, but feeling at the moment that it starts, that's the moment when you've got vocal and physical and breath control. That's the moment where you can be proactive and you can say, oh, I'm going to experience a hot flush in a minute. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to need to sit down. So I'm going to hand over to so-and-so and they're going to carry on for a moment and I will be back shortly. A little bit less sweaty, I hope. You can, as long as you're in control of it, or you're going to say, look, listen, I need to leave the room. It's part of my menopause symptoms. I'm handing over. I will be back shortly. If you wait until you're in that symptom is in full flow, you'll have less breath control, you'll have less vocal control, and you'll certainly have less cognitive ability to find the right way to form what it is you want to say. So beginning to notice that symptom right at the beginning and taking control of it will help you feel in control, will help you sound in control, and will put your audience at ease. They're like, oh, Kate's having hot flush, that's fine. I'm going to listen to Robin for the next 5 minutes and then Kate will be back. As long as they feel like you've managed the situation for them, they probably won't think twice about it. But the longer you leave it, the less physically and vocally in command you're going to sound, which obviously is going to, eat into that credibility. It might be just a tiny bit, but you want to keep that to a minimum as you can, really. Does that make sense?
And I think that's a really, really important point, because I always advocate talking about this. Always. There is never a situation where I say, maybe you shouldn't talk about it. I think because it's a phase in life that every single woman will experience. It's not a choice. It's not because you've done something wrong. It's a life event that we will all experience. If you can treat it as, this is a life event, we will all experience it, this is just part of mine, then the credibility of being that open about something that all women will experience gives you additional credibility rather than takes it away, because you have the strength and ability to say, this is me, this is what it is, this is what we're going through. You have to be the adult in the room. You have to bring your adult self to the table and say, this is part of life. And then people will respond by being an adult with you. But if you immediately come with your apologetic self, oh, I'm so sorry, this is my menopause and I'm having a hot flush, or I've got to leave the room. At that point, you're in the child, you're not in the adult. You're not owning this space anymore. And I think it's a really important point, that you must be the adult in the room in order to ask for the adult energy back.
Definitely, because however people always think that their audience will decide how to treat you. And that's never true. That's never true. The audience treats you how you show up. So whatever energy, whatever physicality you bring to that room, that's how the audience are going to treat you. It's that if we don't show up with that grown-up energy, with that I'm in control of this thing that's actually controlling me at the moment and I don't have a choice about it, then your audience don't have a choice to react differently to you. They're like, oh, okay, that's a thing that's happening, in a way that we would react to a pregnant woman needing to leave the room. There's a physical manifestation. We can see the pregnancy. You can't see the menopause symptoms. But if she said, I need to leave, you'd be like, oh, yeah, sure. Poor thing. Everybody, because there's an acceptance about it. It's okay. But because we don't have that physical manifestation, unless you're having a hot flush or, that sort of thing, it's not the same. So we have to show up, as you say, with that grown-up energy, with that energy of like, this is the thing, it's happening, deal with it. Then our audience will react positively to that. But that has to come through how you hold yourself, how you use your voice, and how you're breathing, really importantly.
Okay, so given all of that, what can you do if you find that you're in a space quicker than you thought you'd be, and suddenly you're in the depths of whatever it is. So it could be emotions. To be honest with you, most women understand a hot flush when it's coming because it starts like a prickle somewhere in their chest or in their back, and so they can feel it. It comes quickly, but you do have that indicator. Flooding, you tend to get an indicator that that's going on, and obviously a UTI you would as well. But let's say suddenly you burst into tears or you shout at someone and you had not expected it. It comes out of nowhere. And anger is a major menopausal issue, and it's like instant red mist. It's not even like I'm really cross, and if I don't take control, I know that I'm going to step into a space where it's going to be out of control. It's like oof, red mist. So if you're in that space and you find yourself in a situation where you've suddenly gone out of control, how can you suggest that you take control of your voice so that you can take control of the situation?
Okay, so yeah, I mean that's a really tricky one, isn't it? When something's happened and you kind of have to almost take it back, if you like. So I would always advocate pausing. I know we talked about this a bit before as well, is breathing out, but take that pause first of all, because in that moment of pausing, you can regather yourself. I would, if you're standing, I would try to make sure that you've got both feet really well planted on the floor, because when our energy is up, when we're shouting, when we're upset, our energy comes up. So we're raised up. We're like, oh, how could you have done that? Everything is up. Actually, what we need to do is get that energy to come back down. And one of the ways we can do that is by making sure our feet are planted on the ground. So I would make sure that both feet, heels and toes, both feet are equally on the ground. Then, I know we mentioned this before, but it is really, really important, is breathe out, because again, that energy's come up, everything is up high. Breathe out. Let go of that tension. Now, if you've yelled at this other person, it's okay to do that breathing out thing. If you haven't yelled and you're in a heated conversation and you breathe out like that, it's going to sound like you're frustrated with the other person. But if you've already yelled, it kind of doesn't matter. You can't do anything worse. So just breathe out. Your main priority at this stage is you. Get yourself back in a good space. Then the next priority is the other person. Then the next priority is the problem, whatever that might be, whatever's caused this heated exchange. So look after yourself first of all. It's a bit like being on an airline, oxygen on you first of all, oxygen on the other person, then you're going to deal with a plane crash. But the first thing is you. So feet on the ground, breathe out. Then if you can find a way to, I don't want to use the word apologize, but you want to be saying, that was really unexpected. That was very unprofessional and I should not have shouted, rather than, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm really, really sorry, I didn't mean it like that, because you've undermined your credibility at that stage. So that was unprofessional, I shouldn't have raised your voice. Now, if you feel you can continue the conversation at that point, then obviously you've got an ability to do that. If you feel like you're still feeling very emotionally labile, which you probably are going to be, you're going to say, I'm sorry, that was very unprofessional. I would like to talk about this, but I don't think now is a good time. I need some space and you probably need some space as well. Can we talk about it later? So you're taking back that control without prostrating yourself at somebody else's feet, because you've done something that you had no control over. You wouldn't have chosen to shout at them. You wouldn't have chosen to burst into tears at this point in the meeting. But by grounding, breathing out, just taking that tiny pause and then stating that whatever you've done was not your intention and you'd like to talk about it and sort it out later, then at least you've got everything back onto an even keel without losing credibility. But I wouldn't rush to try and fix everything there and then. I think our internal driver sometimes is like, we've got to sort it, we've got to fix it.
Yeah.
And actually,
desperate need to like get the plaster over it. So, oh God, if I just put the plaster over it now, it'll be okay. That kind of.
Yeah.
At that point, if you find, and to be brutally honest, if you are finding that anger is one of your symptoms, and I've had it and it is very scary, then I would seriously start to look at other sorts of treatment and support. And I think that that there is absolutely control in saying, I need to go and get additional help with my menopausal symptoms. And I think that at that point, that's where your control is, that's where your positivity sits. And make a promise with yourself that you will go and get some support, because there is no shame in getting support. You know, if you are in that quarter, just over a quarter of women who are having a very hard time and your symptoms are out there, then absolutely the power is saying, I need additional help. You know, we're so driven to be the only one that's there. We're so driven to be in control. We're so driven to actually do it all ourselves, that sometimes it can feel very difficult to ask for additional support. But that is the moment to take the control and do it for yourself, I think.
Absolutely. And also take control and talk to your team or whoever you're working with and say, listen, when you're feeling calm and rational, this is one of my symptoms. I will have outbursts, whether they're tearful or angry. So just so you know, this is going to happen. It's not personal. I never mean it about you. I probably don't mean it about the situation or the problem, but it's going to happen. And so I'm telling you now, so you've got control over when you tell people. I'm telling you now so that you're prepared. And also being able to tell people, this is what I need from you when it happens. Yeah. If it happens, if you can possibly do A, B, and C, that would be amazing. And I will try and do A, B, and C. And so that you've got like a strategy, just like you would if you say you have somebody in your team who's deaf or dyslexic, you have to have a strategy for communication. So this is just something's changing in the way that you're likely to communicate. So have a strategy in place for it. Let your team know, rather than wait for it to happen 3 or 4 times and the team start to go, oh, you know, I don't know what I'm going to get with Kate this week, and she's a bit up and down. So at least if they know everybody's on the same page, you can all start to, you know, follow that communication protocol, and it's much easier.
Absolutely. And I think one of the important points there is if you are out there and you've spoken to your team and you've said that this is menopause, this is what's going on, these are my symptoms, and this is what I need from you, this is the support I need, and this is what I will do in return. What you're also saying is value me as my contribution and as a human being, and I value you too. It's a very important part of being a leader, is being able to say, this is part of my life and this is what's going on.
And if you don't feel comfortable advocating for yourself, because some women I know find it very difficult to speak up for what they need personally, do it for the other women in the team. Do it for the women that are following you. Do it for other women that don't have a voice, that don't have the status or the option to talk about it in the way that you do. So if it's uncomfortable to advocate for yourself, do it to set a precedent for all those other women that can't do it for themselves. I think that's really, really important.
I 100% agree. It's absolutely critical. But I think what's running through all of this is about having that conversation at a point when you feel in control. It's about holding your credibility and saying, this is what's going on for me, these are my symptoms, so that when it does occur, it's not a surprise to anybody. It's not like, oh my goodness me, did you see what they did? It's like, oh gosh, we know what that is. She's spoken to us about it, and this is what we're doing. We know where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. You get to choose, rather than, you don't get to choose when the symptoms show themselves, but you get to choose when you have those conversations, and that is absolutely critical. And that will help you feel like you are more in control, even in those moments when you haven't got control over the symptoms that are occurring. Definitely communicate as often and as early as you possibly can. I couldn't advocate that more.
if you want to have those conversations with gravitas and with an authentic voice, then the next video is very much for you, and we will be talking all about that. So thanks very much, Emma. Fantastic video as always. Please subscribe, leave your messages, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, Kate. Bye now.